Good evening and welcome to GCMX News, coming to you live from our studio in GCMX Africa, Kano, Nigeria. Today, Friday, being the 16th January 2026, which is equivalent to 27th Rajab 1447 after Hijrah. I am Hamza Dauda Adamu with the news. First, the news headlines. Vice President Shetima has departed Abuja to Guinea-Conakry for the inauguration of President Mamadi Doumbouya. Members from Rivers State Assembly declare full support for the impeachment process against Governor Fubara and his deputy, Professor Ngozi. NEC resolved to deepen engagement with stakeholders to boost non-oil revenue. South Korean court sentenced former President Yoon Suk Yeol to 5 years in prison. And now the news in details. Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja to represent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at President Mamadi Doumbouya's inauguration in Guinea-Conakry. The Vice President is also billed to attend the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, after his participation in the presidential inauguration in the West African countries. This was disclosed by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media Communications Office of the Vice President, Stanley Nkocha, in a statement on Friday. The Vice Presidential aide said the Vice President will represent President Tinubu at the inauguration of President Doumbouya following his election victory at the ceremony scheduled to take place on Saturday, January 17th at the GLC Stadium, Nongo, Conakry. The Kano State Police Command has recorded significant breakthroughs in crime prevention following the interception of suspected explosive material and illicit drugs in 2 separate operations across the state. The successes followed ongoing directives by the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Adeola Agbektokun, on strengthening intelligence gathering and promoting intelligence-led policing. However, in the first operation carried out on 13 January 2026, police officers from the Rijel Lemu Division, acting on the instruction of the Commissioner of Police, executed a search warrant at a resident in Tudumbo Jua quarters within Faye local government area. Meanwhile, the command said the operation was part of sustained effort to curb criminal activities and prevent threats to public safety and as investigation continue in the items recovered and those connected to them. 4 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly have made a dramatic U-turn as they now declare full support for the impeachment process against Governor Similayi Fubara and his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu. The lawmakers' minority leader of the House, Honorable Silvanus Nwanko, alongside Honorables Peter Abe, Baril Nwanko, and Emilia Amadi had only days ago withdrawn from the impeachment move, calling instead for peace and dialogue. However, speaking to the journalists on Friday at the entrance of the assembly complex, the group said they were left with no choice but to return to the process. According to Minority Leader Silvanus Nwanko, their decision followed that they describe as the governor's unwillingness to seek a political solution to the crisis rocking the state. Also speaking, Honorables Baril Nwanko and Emilia Amadi said they had backed their impeachment after concluding that both the governor and his deputy show no readiness for dialogue. Also speaking, Honorables Baril Nwanko and Emilia Amadi said they had backed the impeachment after concluding that both the governor and his deputy show no readiness for their dialogue. Meanwhile, their latest stance comes as tension continues to mount within the Rivers State House of Assembly over the impeachment move against Governor Fubara and his deputy. You are still watching to GCMX African News. Stay tuned as we come back shortly. Welcome back. The National Economic Council (NEC) has resolved to deepen engagement within stakeholders to boost non-oil revenues in line with the economic blueprint of the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This is as the chairman of the council, Vice President Kashim Shettima, called for an accelerated transition from oil to non-oil economic through competitive manufacturing, export diversification, and private sector investment. Meanwhile, the Council has also approved the constitution of a committee on the implementation of the presidential directives on the actualization of the legacy projects. However, the committee is chaired by the governor of Cross River State, while one governor from each sub-region will serve as member of the committee as follows: Northwest Sokoto, Northeast Gombe, North Central Niger, Southeast Abia, and Southwest Lagos. Also, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, Deborah Odo, shall serve as Secretary, while the Minister of Works and Transportation will also serve on the committee. Police operation in Kebbi State have arrested a 30-year-old man, Suleiman Mahmuda, for allegedly killing his wife, Umaima Maidawa, in Bayawa OG local government area of the state. Spokesperson for the Kebbi State Police Command, XP Bashir Usman, said the suspect reportedly struck his wife with the wooden handle of a hoe, leading to her death. According to him, Mahmuda fled the area after the incident, but was later traced and arrested following police investigation and credible information from members of the community. However, SP Usman added that the Commissioner of Police, CP Umar Muhammad Hadeja, has ordered the transfer of the case to the State Criminal Investigation Department for discreet investigation and prosecution. A South Korean court on Friday sentenced former President Yoon Suk Yeol to 5 years in prison after finding him guilty of obstructing justice and other offenses linked to his failed declaration of martial law and the turmoil that followed in the country. The Seoul Central District Court, Judge Baek Dae-hoon, Yoon deliberately blocked investigators from detaining him and unlawfully excluded cabinet members from a key meeting where the imposition of martial law was planned. However, the court accused Yoon of forging official documents, citing insufficient evidence, which he has 7 days to file an appeal. The verdict marks the first in a series of cases confronting the disgraced former leader, whose brief suspension of civilian rule on 3rd December 2024 triggered mass protests and a dramatic confrontation in parliament. Yoon was later removed from the office and now faces multiple trials arising the crisis and its aftermath. Meanwhile, in a separate case, prosecutors earlier this week demanded the death penalty for Yoon, describing him as the ringleader of an insurrection for threatening the declaration of martial law. They argue that he showed no remorse for action that endangers South Korea's constitutional order and democracy. To end the news, a recap of the major item. You have heard that Vice President Shetima has departed Abuja to Guinea-Conakry for the inauguration of President Mamadi Doumbouya. You also heard that members from Rivers State House of Assembly declare full support for the impeachment process against Governor Fubara and his deputy, Professor Ngozi. You also heard that NEC resolves to deepen engagement with stakeholders to boost non-oil revenue. You also heard that South Korean court sentenced former President Yoon Suk Yeol to 5 years in prison. This news comes to you live from our studio at GCMX Africa, Kano, Nigeria. You can also follow us through our social media handles at GCMX Africa or our streaming platform at GCMX On Streaming or GCMX Radio Garden. Once again, I'm Hamza Daud Adamu saying goodbye for now.